You're somebody who is in the process of changing. You're coming from a place where you were maybe in destructive or toxic habits, and now you're stepping into productive and healthy habits. Or you're somebody who used to live a certain life that was not serving you, and now you're stepping into a life that is serving you. If you're somebody who is in that evolutionary process, that actualizing process, you're going to find that there are people around you, the people that you may have called your kin, the closest folks to you, your besties, your bays, your boos, your day ones, whatever it may be. You will find yourself in situations where these individuals do not want you to change. Now, there's a valid reason for this, because when I first started transforming and transcending, and I first stepped out of an addiction and running around in the streets to living a completely different life. I'm talking about living like a monk in essence. When I made that transition, I realized that a lot of people from my past, they needed me to be what I was, right? And I thought that they were just hating on my growth. They were hating on my progress. They didn't want me to win or whatever it was. But that wasn't necessarily the case. Some, sure. Yeah, there are those, right? But there were ones who had known me for upwards of 10 years at that point, who needed me to be what they knew, needed me to be somebody they could recognize, because that's the role I had played within their script. And change is a difficult thing, not only when we experience it, but when we experience it through somebody else, because we now have to readjust. We now have to find, wait, what is my place here? Where do I stand with this situation? And then it starts to trigger the insecurities within ourselves. When we see somebody changing who is close to us, and let's say, we used to be drinking buddies, right? And now all of a sudden they're not drinking anymore. And not only are they not drinking, but now they're, working out a little bit, and then a lot of bit. Now they're, taking care of their sleep. So they're changing their sleeping schedule. They're not coming out to the club like they used to, going out to the bars like they used to. All of a sudden, this individual who I used to be, drinking buddies with, we used to be out till 2, 3 a.m. every other night. Now this person is a hermit. And I maybe see him once or twice a week. And they say, let's go to a cool lounge or whatever. I'm not drinking. So, get themselves a salsa water or a salsa, whatever the heck. And you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, like what happened? You feel like you've lost something, you're losing something. And simultaneously, you're also being triggered. Your own knowing that what they're doing is reflecting something back to you that you should probably be doing, but are not doing, then creates that animosity. That's what creates that crabs in a barrel mentality. That's what has people going out of their way in some cases to draw you back in. So again, when I first sobered up, and I told my homeboys, like, this is how I'm moving. At first, they're like, oh, okay, cool. It seems supportive. But then as time went on, I realized that they were offering the very same things I told them I was no longer indulging in. And I wondered, what is the case here? Like, what's the situation? Do you not want me to move forward? Do you not want me to do better for myself? I took it personally. Like Michael Jordan said in the documentary, I took it personally. I believe that they were hating on me specifically because it was me, not realizing that they had no other way to process their own emotions. They didn't even understand what they were doing. Again, most of them, they did not get it. They didn't understand that they were just reflecting onto me something that was taking place within them, the same way I would have done with somebody who seemed like they were changing, right? If I had found myself in a relationship dynamic, an intimate relationship or romantic relationship, and all of a sudden my partner starts doing inner work and finding out things about, what's going on within them, resolving these inner conflicts and dealing with the inner trauma. And oh man, if they start doing that and I'm still in the same place, not even looking, not even introspecting, not even interested in that journey, I may start to feel threatened in that relationship dynamic. And it's not because I want to, it's not because I have the desire to, but that's the byproduct of stagnation. That's the byproduct of standing still. And so we find ourselves in these relationship dynamics, in these friendships, these partnerships, whatever it may look like, where the person we are looking to become, or the person that we are becoming, in the process of becoming at the very least, is in complete and polar juxtaposition to where we once were and where all the other people who once knew us are or were. Now, I do have to make this clear. It is not your job to drag people to where you are. As a matter of fact, it's not your job to drag anybody anywhere. It's not your job to do anything towards somebody else or for somebody else. That is free will. You have the decision to be of service. You have the decision, to advise individuals. But in more cases than not, if you are the one who is outgrowing a space, if you are outgrowing a state of consciousness and you are evolving, you're going into a higher vibrational space, and that's becoming your new norm, it's for you. You're the one on that journey, and they are where they are within their own journey. And we have to recognize that, we have to accept that, and we have to allow that. And in more cases than not, we have to let that go. I know that's not easy. Trust me. These are the group of individuals I had known for longer than anybody else, right? I had moved from Africa, 9 years old, almost 10 years old. And so this was an entirely new world when I moved to the West, when I moved to the US. And so creating a friendship dynamic with individuals, and a close knit one, and one for years on end, that was like my brotherhood. I didn't know anybody from fourth grade, third grade, 12th grade. I mean, say 12th grade, third grade, fourth grade, second grade. I didn't know anybody at that level because the people didn't travel with me. So the friends that I had created in sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, going on, those were my people. Those were my kindred spirits at the time. And so whatever they did, I did. Whatever I did, they did. We moved in that way until I said, wait, this isn't serving me. Like, this actually isn't benefiting me or even them at the end of the day. And I did try to force a lot of these ideas on them. I'll be the type of person sending you motivational quotes and videos and stuff like that, trying to be a savior in essence. I remember even one time, one of my old homegirls, her mom would drop her off at my house. She was like 18 at the time. I was 19. And her mom would be like, please take care of her. Make sure she doesn't get on the dope. And I mean, looking at it now, I'm like, bro, you were looking for a babysitter who was barely a year older than your child. That's how I see it now. Back then, I was a savior. Captain Saban, no. Well, I didn't have the word no in my vocabulary, but what I did have was a savior complex, and I flexed it. And the only thing it resulted in, to be honest with you guys, is more stress, more misery, more frustration, more stagnation, because I allowed myself to stay in the very same place as opposed to following that natural course that was calling me forward. We're all being called to higher states of awareness, higher states of consciousness, every single one of us at a moment to moment basis. There is a knocking on that door. But when we don't answer, when we choose to not answer, when we choose to close our spiritual eyes and bury our spiritual head in the sand, we end up in situations where we are now in resistance to life. We're now going against the natural path. We're going upstream as opposed to downstream, as Esther Hicks says, right? And when we find ourselves doing that, then again, we're not serving the person we think we're serving. We think we're doing that person a service or a justice by trying to drag them out of that situation. Like, you probably heard of these stories by these rappers at this point, right? All over the reels and shorts and things of that nature. And they blow up. They have that big single or that big album, and they try to bring everybody in the hood with them, everybody and their mamas, and they're taking care of everybody. I think MC Hammer is probably like the most wild story. He had a staff of over like 200 people that he hired from the hood. But you got your Fat Joes, et cetera. We talk about filling up an entire plane, private jet with 100 of their best homies. I don't even know how you have 100 best homies. I barely got 2 or 3 that I can even say those are my people, like without a shadow of a doubt, right? But nevertheless, everybody becomes your homie once you got the bag, right? And you believe that you are indebted, even though you're the one who did the work. You're the one, who went internally and resolved these internal wounds and internal issues, or not necessarily wounds, but introspected to see what was going on within you. You at least did that work. You did the shadow work. You illuminated lights in those dark spots within yourself. You did that for you. And those around you may not be willing to do that yet. And again, that's okay. That's a decision they have to make for themselves. You can't force feed anybody into this process. And again, they can only reflect to you where they are. Every single time they're going to reflect to you how they feel about themselves. So when you see a hater, when you see somebody who is envious, it is simply because they're in a place where they believe they cannot get what it is that you have, or they don't deserve what it is that you have, or the life that you're living, the things that you're demonstrating. And so they can't help but feel a sense of deprivation that will sometimes lead to a place where they don't want you to have what you have. But you don't have to worry about these folks. So long as you're not in the savior complex and trying to drag folks up, you'll get to a place where you're vibrating in such a high vibrational state that these people will weed themselves out of your situation or they will rise to your level. There's no other way. That is universal law. That's a universal principle. Like attracts like, the law of resonance. Energy must resonate and it will always meet with its resonance. So if you find yourself getting higher and higher in your vibration, you'll find people falling away from your experience naturally. Sometimes it naturally means you saying, okay, no more answering these calls, no more answering these texts. We're so afraid to let go of relationships. And I'm not just talking about like intimate relationships, right? We're more likely to actually let go of a romantic relationship than we are a friendship. When in more cases than not, that friendship is the one that actually has to go, quote unquote friendship. We'll take years, sometimes decades, to let go of a quote unquote friendship that has long since, left its shore. There has been no relationship for 15 to 20 years, and you're still hanging on to this person, trying to call him bestie, boo, and bae, and this is my people. That ain't your people no more. They're not even on the same frequency as you are, not to make you better or worse. And maybe you might be the one who then, got weeded out of their experience because they've made that decision to naturally evolve, right? That's the truth as well. I was in a state before where there were people who were, evolving past where I was, and I was staying in that same stagnant space. And I was the one who was weeded out, I would continue to dip, duck, dodge, phone no longer responsive. That might be the reality. And that's okay. We don't need to guilt ourselves. First published book, Doing Me Guilt Free. We don't need to live from a state of guilt. We're not here to comfort and soothe everybody. We're here to live authentically. And how somebody thinks or feels or acts is based upon their own decision. They got to choose how they think and therefore how they feel. You can't control that. It doesn't mean that you go out of your way, to mess with people's feng shui. That's not what I'm saying. Instead, I'm saying it's not your job. It's not your responsibility to be somebody's emotional caretaker. You are not an emotional landlord going from door to door collecting rents. You are not responsible for how other people upkeep their own emotional and mental state. You can be a contributing factor. That is a choice that you have. But the greatest way that you can do so is by how you live, how you represent yourself through your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, and your actions. When you're aligned in those four, you become a powerhouse that can stand as an example for people to duplicate for themselves, not to emulate you and to try to be like you, right? That's not what it's about. It's about them finding the same within themselves. When they see you shine, they're looking for the shine within themselves. And you can only do that when you stand as that, not when you're trying to drag everybody behind you and play Captain Save a Nobody, because that's who you are saving at the end of the day. No damn body. So yeah, this is a decision that we have to make for ourselves, but it first comes with accepting that there are people right now in your physical experience that simply cannot. They can't be the support system that you need. They don't have it in them. The individual who has the ability to celebrate you even when they're not quote unquote winning, that I believe is the rarest type of individual you can find in life. But that person is somebody who's already winning internally. They've already come to a place where they have such a deep reservoir of love within themselves that they can extend that over to you. That's a different kind of person. They may look like they're not winning, but that person's going to be the winner, winner, winner. The person who can just look at people and be wow and pour into them regardless of where they are in their life. You get your first million and then they're, $10,000, $100,000 in debt. And they look at you like, man, you're doing it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy. And it comes from that genuine place. You find them type of people, that person's going to be up 100 million in the next 2 years. They can't help but attract that. They can't help because that energy that they're resonating on is so damn high. It is only a matter of sequence and time, period. But besides that, most individuals in your life, they have served their purpose. They have been the master or the teacher in the spaces that they needed to be so. And it's not your job to change the dynamic. And I know it may be confusing and may be hard when it comes to family dynamics, but it happens within family. I think sometimes, in some cases, it happens more so in family than any other type of relationships where you just have to realize that this What it used to be is not what it's going to be, right? And these are the ones we try to drag the most. We think that we were sent here to save them more than anybody else. I got to drag my sister up out of her addiction, got to drag my brother up out of his foolishness. Absolutely not. I got to drag my mama, my grandmama out of whatever they're on. That's not your job. If it was, you would be born as them. I say like, yeah, you were sent with the Savior. Like we do have a Savior, and they were sent with you at birth. They were born at the exact same second as you were. If you were twin, I ain't talking about that person. I'm talking about you. You were sent with you. You were sent in order to make sure that you're good. And when you do that and the next person does that for themselves and the next one and the next one, everything is all good. But so long as we're trying to be that for others or having others hold us to be that for them, forget about it. We'll just stay stagnant. We'll stay in the same place. We'll stay in the desert when we're supposed to be in the promised land. You understand? 40 years in the desert. Never make it to the promised land. Be missing all kinds of man, listen, I'm not the one. I've come to a place where I'm like, I'm too grown for this. I'm too grown to try to drag people and all convince people into their nah. I'm gonna speak the truth from a loving place, and I'm gonna leave it as that. The decision is always the individuals. That's all it comes down to. That's something I did learn when I came about the churches. They do spew that type of rhetoric. Now a lot of it, they just saying it, right? And saying, well, the decision is yours, but really the decision ain't yours because they telling you going to hell if you don't decide, what they're what they're extending to you, right? I'm not the one for all that. But I do believe in this sense of, live as the light, live as somebody who's a representation of truth, of freedom, of living in personal power, of authenticity, showing up in life in a way that is genuinely you as opposed to what you believe other people need you to be in order for you to be validated within their eyes. And when you live from that place, the people that you love most, that you wanted to drag, the people that you attach yourself to, that you need to let go right now, they will be inspired when they need to be inspired. You can try to pay people's everything. You give somebody 100,000, they say, damn, you could have given me 1 million. You buy them a car, they say, damn, you could have bought me a house. It's never going to be enough. It's never going to satisfy so long as you're doing it from a place of, again, trying to save them, trying to be something for them that they need to be for themselves. Now, if you want to give that a car and the house or whatever, that's up to you. That's between you and you, right? That's between you and you. You are grown. You need to make your own decisions when it comes to that. But doing so from, again, a place of need, a place of seeking some sort of validity, of trying to soothe or comfort yourself, it ain't going to work. The math will not math. I tell you that right now. But the math that is math, and is this right here. Getting yourself a copy of my very first book, Doing Me Guilt-Free, Breaking Free from People Pleasing and Unleashing Your Personal Power. Get yourself a copy by clicking the link in the description below. It's time for us to free ourselves from these shackles that we put up on our feet so we can dance. You understand me? Appreciate you guys for tapping in, tuning in, and being all the way turned up. Until the next time, namaste, namaskar.